Welcome back to the Remedial Film Class Podcast. I'm your host, Dan.
And I'm Travis.
And I'm George.
Hey, George.
And he's quitting.
We just watched a movie called Manhunter from 1986.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling that it might have felt a little bit familiar to you.
Not at all, actually.
The thing that I think gives it away is right at the beginning of the movie during the opening credits. Produced by Dino De Laurentiis. Did you catch that?
No.
It's the same guy that produced Red Dragon.
Did you catch the based on a novel called Red Dragon in the opening credits?
Yeah, that's
No.
Let's narrow this down.
I didn't need to.
Travis and I had a little, not a bet necessarily, but we were interested to see at what point in watching the movie Manhunter did you realize, holy crap, this is Red Dragon again. So, George, how are you doing tonight, man?
I can tell you exactly the moment.
Tell me the moment you realized you were watching the same movie as last week.
The very first scene when the dude's like, oh, come back and just do this case. And he's like,
Wow, it's almost exactly how they said it, too.
Yeah. And he's like, I can't do it. I don't want to do it. And I'm like, oh my God, is this Red Dragon again for real? And then he's like talking to his wife, and I'm like, what? Did it really say Red Dragon in the
very beginning?
In the opening credits, it says based on the
credits.
novel Red Dragon by Thomas Harris.
Was it before the actual movie started?
Yeah, like during the opening credits.
It was after the quick intro, the woman waking up.
Oh, the really scary intro, guys.
And
Before
then
we
they
even
show
talk
the
about the
credits.
fact that we just watched the same movie 2 weeks in a row, the opening of this movie, significantly scarier than anything in Red Dragon. Like actual scary movie stuff. Really good.
If you say so. Yeah, so I guess I wasn't paying attention to the credits.
We knew you wouldn't.
I wasn't paying attention to the credits, I think probably because I didn't want whatever it was that I was supposed to be surprised about to be spoiled by the credits. Like, when we watched First Blood, and I saw Sylvester Stallone, I'm like, oh, okay. I know
You
who
already
it is.
were set up to know what you were going to watch.
Yeah. And so
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
So I think I just ignored it, like all the credits and such, and it was like the first 30 seconds of dialogue. I was like, is this really Red Dragon again for real?
It's amazing. So we watched it last night, my wife and I, and I think I've watched it with her twice now. I've seen it probably 4 or 5 times over the years. I rented this back from Blockbuster before Red Dragon came out. Like, I've had a long relationship with this movie. And we were both, like, riveted the whole time and thought it was friggin' awesome. So there's a certain amount of, like, we set you up for failure by showing you a movie you'd seen before and then making you watch the same movie but older and with some really questionable 80s aesthetics here and there.
Yeah.
The opening green font,
Some?
where it says Manhunter and it's all glowy, it's hard for me to take that seriously. But, did you catch who directed the movie?
That's what blew me away.
No.
He's a guy named Michael Mann. Have you ever heard of Michael Mann?
Yes, I have.
Do you remember the movie that we watched a couple of weeks ago from him?
No.
It had the same Tom Noonan, the guy that plays Red Dragon, Mr. D, was actually in the movie that we watched a couple of weeks ago as a minor role.
Dollarhide was?
Yeah.
Wait, was he?
Yeah.
I don't remember him in that.
Yeah, he's in there. He's in Heat.
All right,
George, Heat. You remember Heat?
Okay. Yes, I remember Heat.
Same director as Heat.
Director is Heat.
Really?
Imagine that.
Yeah.
This might be his first movie.
No, this is like his 4th or 5th movie. It's early in the run for Michael Mann.
Mike, your first movie. Woof.
You guys don't even know. This, guys, this is
I
a
do.
superior film. This is better than Red Dragon.
Absolutely not.
No.
Oh my gosh.
No
it
way.
is so
Stop
much
it.
better than Red Dragon.
Absolutely not.
Explain to me how, because I like Red Dragon, but I know it has its flaws.
This movie is hot garbage.
This
man.
movie is reminds me of a lot of the movies that I snuck down to watch when my parents went to bed, and when it was over going, there was not even any nudity. It wasn't even worth my time.
Not even one
Yeah.
side boob.
It was like total 80s.
Nothing.
The music was
The music
the
is amazing.
The acting is bad.
Right from the
They had-
beginning, you hear
they
that
had-
like
they had
synth
two good-
pad music, and then you hear the boom, 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 boom.
No,
Like
that's
Phil
fine, the
Collins
score.
drums with the reverb and the delay. You know, the 80s, like, oh man.
Yeah,
It's
that
of a
was
time.
fine. It's the music like the climactic music, and then obviously the the music that they bought that was like recognizable. It just was.
There
I
is
don't know.
music in this movie that is going to be the crux of one of the reasons I now love this movie more now than I did 2 days ago. Like, I came to a conclusion last night watching this movie again. Like, I had a moment of clarity and realized, oh my God, my crazy idea is actually supported within the text. Guys, it's not a windy theory. It actually is in the movie. And we'll get to that in a little bit, but I'm going to tease you a little bit. Get those listeners excited because I know they have to slog through you two crapping on a movie that's real good. So there's light at the end of the tunnel, guys.
Terrible, terrible movie.
It had its moments.
No,
but
it didn't.
Do you know why
They
this
will-
movie
Stop
is
it.
better than Red Dragon the movie?
It is not.
Because the main character is the guy with the actual arc. I feel like Red Dragon too hard pushes Hannibal Lecter as the focus at the beginning. And he shouldn't be the focus. This isn't his story.
Ray Fiennes is way better than the Tom Noonan. Although Tom Noonan is Michael Myers without his mask, which is
Yeah.
kind of cool.
No, did you catch? Actually, this is a hat tip to my wife, who is wonderful.
times.
The the
Shot him
ID
6
picture
times.
from the Missouri Department of Revenue, when
Yeah.
they print it off, did you catch that he looks just like a Michael Myers mask?
Well,
like-
I pictured even his movements, like when
Yeah.
he was stalking her in her, like at the end when he was stalking the blind girl, his girlfriend, in the house, and he's like kind of lumbering like Frankenstein around the house.
Gosh, that
I'm like,
one
oh,
scene,
he's-
he's standing in front of the weird like space painting, and his posture is so weird, and his head, I'm
Yeah.
doing it now, but you can't see me. Like his head stretches way out in front of his shoulders, and he looks like a monster. Like, this
Yeah,
isn't
but
your
he's still not
pro
better than
wrestler
Ray.
WWE gonna cut a promo on a motherfucker before he kills him, right? This is like a much more like, I could really imagine a person like this being alive and killing people. Like, this guy seems like legitimately threatening.
He reminded me of like the introduction when I was a kid and I heard those bells for the first time, and the Undertaker came and he took 10 minutes to walk to the ring, and he didn't say a word.
Well, and that's
And he
just
got
because
to the middle of the
Undertaker was
ring.
doing Michael Myers, and this
Right,
guy's
but-
also doing Michael Myers.
Exactly.
But
once he started talking, I'm like, wait, all the mystery's gone.
But anyway, I just find the Ray Fiennes guy, I find him to be too like manicured to be like a comic book supervillain. And the dollar height of this movie, I find him to be much more, I mean, you're not wrong that he's got some Michael Myers-y tendencies, but it's like Michael Myers in the first Halloween is scarier than Michael Myers in Rob Zombie's Halloween. You know.
Right.
And
he's
it's
smaller.
and it doesn't have to do with the size necessarily, it's just how well he uses it.
It's behavior. It's just like if we ever get to the movie Predator, like you can make 10, 15, 20 Predator movies and you're never going to get an actor that could embody the movements that Kevin Peter Hall did. His ability to not be a human being in a suit, but actually figure out a way to move his body to where you're like, I'm buying it, hook, line, and sinker.
Now,
That's
if he made a home video of himself acting as like Bigfoot,
Mhm.
you would believe it
He
because
has
he's that good at it.
right.
You know.
He played Bigfoot and he was very good at it.
Yeah. There you go.
He was in Harry and Henderson.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah, this guy, I think Tom Noonan actually made a career playing. He was kind of not a creature actor, but he definitely was a physical presence. when he
Okay,
played a
so
part.
Francis Dollarhide in this movie, one-dimensional.
Yeah, there definitely is more acting and character levels.
Very
in the second
straightforward.
Well, it's not his story.
There's nothing complex about him.
And I think that there's
Talking
probably
about it's not his story. It's absolutely his story.
I agree. This story is about Will Graham, but it's like you still have to give Will Graham a balanced character to go against. And obviously, in this movie, it's not Hannibal Lecter because the Hannibal Lecter in this movie is terrible.
Oh my god!
But
See, now I like the Hannibal Lecter in this movie, and I
Really?
understand if you've only seen this, if this is the first time you've watched this or you haven't watched it in a long time, you know, what Anthony Hopkins does with the character is remarkable and great. Like,
but I'm not even comparing him to that. I'm just comparing it to it. To me, my biggest problem with this movie was it reminded me of going to see a stage play and seeing people deliver lines. And half the people never sat down to think, okay, here I could inflect a line. Here I could take a word and give it a lot of gravity. They just read lines. And I felt a lot of this movie relies on the dialogue banter, you know, the volley, as we call it. And if the volley is there's no emphasis behind the volley and it's just reading lines back and forth or even saying lines that you've learned and memorized, it sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah,
So
it
when
sounds just like Ed Norton in Red Dragon.
Yeah, but
here's
this
a,
whole
here's a
movie
note
was
of mine. I'm really not enjoying the dialogue, which is good because it's not like this entire movie is dialogue.
right.
Like, it's nonstop.
It has to be riveting. If it's not riveting, it just sounds like two people talking on
Oh
a train.
my god!
And you want to jump off that train.
I wanted to shoot myself
Yeah.
in the face.
And I love Dennis Farina, but he's no Jack Crawford. Dennis Farina is one of my favorite Goombas.
He was one of the better
No, he's good
actors.
in this, but after you see Scott Glenn play Crawford, he brings a class to that from Silence. Like
Mhm.
there's a level of now I don't know if this is a lower ranking Crawford than in
Yeah.
Silence, but
The
he
Crawford,
did a lot of growing.
The Crawford in Silence was kind of, he had this combination of like aloofness and
He's kind of on an ivory tower in that movie.
yeah,
he
he's
has
got
like
this
a class to him.
but it's I don't want to say like aloofness, like he's like rude or something, like it's, you know, like it's like you don't like
like
it.
a conceit.
He's
above you.
He's up there, but
Right.
he's so competent that he's up there for a reason.
Right.
You know, so like he doesn't get into the nitty gritty because he's got way bigger fish to
Right.
fry. Is the feeling I get from Jack
and
Crawford.
this Jack Crawford, it sounds like a beat cop from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like he's like every cop you hear in an 80s movie, and I expected him to
You
be a
expected
little
them
bit
to have
more-
made this movie later than the 80s? I mean,
No, but I expected somebody who's part of the FBI and is a decorated, you know, agent.
Yeah, like
to
is every
speak better.
FBI agent like I don't know.
He sounds like if Joe Pesci was running the FBI.
Yeah.
Like, and to me, and I love Dennis Farina. If we ever watch Get Shorty, I will be a happy person because he's phenomenal in Get Shorty. And he plays one of the best characters ever in that movie. But to me, he just did not fit the Jack Crawford part. I don't know. But then again, it could be a ranking thing. This is like 10 years prior.
I feel like I
to
could
Silence.
go character by character and explain why Red Dragon's version of that character is better.
I do like this Will Graham better because I agree with Dan. It does give him a lot more depth, but the guy playing him has no chops. He kind of gained some chops later on when he was in CSI TV show. I think if the CSI William
Do you-
Peterson
do you mean
was in this movie,
The way he was written in this movie
no, the way it
gave
was
him
acted.
more depth. Okay, the way
No, the way he was
act-
written, he definitely has more depth. Maybe it's delivery because I don't think the director and or oh my god, his name just flew out of my head.
You know who would make a really
played
really
that?
shitty Will Graham?
Who would play a really shitty one?
Yeah,
A lot of people.
Nick Cage.
Oh god.
He would be the worst Will Graham.
Probably. Although you would definitely
But-
see that turmoil.
But his no, this is with the Will Graham in this movie. is a Nick Cage character. It's
Yeah,
a
he's
perfect
like-
role for Nick Cage.
He's off the handle.
And he's talking to himself. And
Talking
he's
to
figuring
himself,
stuff out,
yeah.
like National Treasure 2.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I can't get Nick Cage out of my head.
I
when
think-
he's going through the case file and recording himself,
Yeah.
and he's like asking questions about the case file as he's reading it.
And then he's
I'm
talking
like,
to
oh
the
my
killer.
god, all I can see is Nick fucking Cage. Get this off my TV.
I'm
Harrison
pretty sure
Ford would've
most
been
of
good
the
at this.
same monologue dialogue is in Red Dragon. I know a lot of the
Yeah.
actual inner
I know.
character dialogue is
It
the
is.
same in Red Dragon.
It is a lot of it is the same, but you're right, and it's delivered and in places that make so much more sense in Red Dragon.
I look at the casting. Like, when you watch a movie written by Aaron Sorkin, like we've discussed A Few Good Men, Aaron Sorkin is like American Shakespeare. When he's almost like Eminem. Like, he takes entire paragraphs and wraps them around each other, and they're just like beautiful to hear. Like, the guy who's walking the prisoners to their jail cell are just as well written as the judge, and the judge is just as well written as the main character. Like, everybody in the play and or movie or TV show that Aaron Sorkin writes, they all have enough to play with, no matter what part they are. Even if they're, attendant 7, they're figuring something out for that character to do, and the person casted does it, and you're like, wow, yeah, that guy who was carrying the bag was awesome. But when you have a movie like this, it's like it's written that way.
So much depth to that character.
It has there's a
bag
lot of
carry guy.
dialogue, and if your actors that you choose are not up to the task to make every line interesting, then it just sounds like just somebody talking, and there's nothing behind it. And like you said, the whole movie is just talking. You do want to jump off the bridge because it's just like, oh my god, they don't stop talking. It's almost like if you hear, like I just experienced this in the movie theater. People, for some reason, in a movie theater decide that they're going to chew popcorn like they've never eaten food before.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that one guy who takes one popcorn at a time, and he throws it in his mouth, and then he goes, throws the next one in. Well, after 10 minutes of that, you want to kill yourself. And that's how I felt about the dialogue in this movie. Like, I was just like, oh my god, they're talking, and they won't stop talking, but they're not good at it. And it drove me insane. And I wanted to love it because I like the world that exists, but I felt it was just the acting was
All right, so
Cinemax.
let me give you a for instance of the dialogue. There's a lot. This isn't the only example. There's a lot of this going on. Do you know the line when what's her name, the blind girl Reba?
Reba.
Reba. Yeah, Joan Allen.
When Reba asks, "Can I touch your face?" I want to know if you're smiling or not. Right? In this movie, in Manhunter, it's like the first interaction between these two characters.
Right.
Right? And it's like a minute into their dialogue. In Red Dragon, they establish a relationship between the two characters. It might be a romantic one.
Right.
It might go there. She delivers that line, "Can I touch your face?" way later in their two characters' relationship, and at a point where it is appropriate for her to not know what his expression is.
Right.
It's like and they're close enough to where, she knows that he's got issues with his palate or whatever. Right? And she knows that he's self-conscious about it because he's made that known to her already. I'm talking about in Red Dragon. So when she says, "Can I touch your face?" it means so much more in Red Dragon than it does here.
Yeah, there's not much of a relationship built in this. It's almost like she's captive.
Yeah, when Will Graham says to Lecter, "Because you're crazy," in this movie, that was the first explanation as to what the disadvantages were.
Right.
Right?
Or you're insane.
Insane. In Red Dragon, Ed Norton was dancing around that conversation, was getting through that conversation as best he could
without revealing
for a
that.
long time before it got to that. And when it got to that, it was malicious.
Right.
Like,
And that's because of Anthony Hopkins, because this movie was not built around Lecter, and that Red Dragon was.
right.
So that's where Dan's talking about, like, him being more important in Red Dragon than he is in this movie.
I don't see the problem with Lecter having a bigger role here. In this movie, Lecter could have not even been there.
Right.
The only thing that Lecter did in this movie was give the Tooth Fairy the home address.
Right.
And that was quickly rectified, as it was in Red Dragon. But in Red Dragon, Lecter was like toying with them through the whole movie. And obviously Will Graham needs Lecter because Will Graham needs to get into that mindset again. And it's so much better, dude.
Well, you have to measure your expectations a little bit, because the way that you've come into this world is
You
through
already have
the original
Lecter.
Red Dragon with the modifications to what they did in Manhunter, and then with Silence of the Lambs, which is an Oscar-winning, all-time great film. So when you go back and look at the earlier kind of prototypical version of the character, your initial reaction may be, ugh, this isn't as good. And it's like, well, yeah, when you have 25 years of work to add to a character.
During
But that's not even my issue with
Red
it.
Dragon, Red Dragon, Lecter's like, you looked, but you didn't see. You were looking,
right, but
you
like
saw
Dan's
it,
saying,
but
you're
didn't see it.
getting
You did, like
an
that whole
established
thing,
character.
and then you have the scene with the reporter and Dollarhide.
Mhm.
It just, man, the
Way
way
better in Red
the
Dragon.
way
Yeah.
it happened in
Well,
Red Dragon
again,
was
you're dealing with an actor in Red Dragon that's way better than the actor in this, the reporter.
I feel like Dollarhide had in Red Dragon had his mission was clear. His when he presented his Red Dragon-ness to the reporter, like, it was, here's this person. Do you see? Blah 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 blah. Do you see? Blah blah blah. Like,
Mhm.
it was so much their directing was so much better. The writing was so much better. The acting was so much better. I don't see how this movie holds a candle to Red Dragon. And you can't even say that, like, this is like, oh, this is like what Red Dragon came from, because it's not. They come from the same book, right?
It's just
So,
a
like,
retelling of a
so
story.
the book
two different-
existed. So we could have had Red Dragon without this movie.
Mhm.
Totally. So this movie is worthless.
But I don't know if you get. You're definitely going to get Silence of the Lambs without this movie.
I don't know
but
that you.
You might not.
I don't know that you are, because the book itself came out pretty soon around the movie. I don't have the timeline in front of me, but the
Right.
success of this movie helps you get Silence of the Lambs, the book, and the movie.
My complaints about this movie are more or less just technique. Like that scene when Graham goes to visit Lecter. It's not as built up as the Silence introduction of Lecter, because they spend the 10 minutes explaining all the shit that he did before you see him. And then you finally see him and you're like, oh my God, it looks like my uncle. Like, this guy chewed somebody's face off. The payoff is good. With this, it was very nonchalant. I gotta go see Lecter. And then 2 seconds later, he's seeing Lecter. And the delivery, the volley between them two never changed from that nonchalance. Like, there was no tension there until he calls him insane. And even then, it wasn't drawn out of him. He just said it. You're insane. And to me, as an actor / hopefully ever a director, I would have definitely told both of them, you gotta pull these lines from each other.
They don't have that in them.
I think
these
Brian Cox does. I mean, I've seen Brian Cox.
The
do
thing
some
that
good
George
stuff.
doesn't know, you know Brian Cox from he's the father of Samara in The Ring. He electrocutes himself in a bathtub with a bunch of power strips.
Yeah, but he doesn't even show his range there either.
He is a theater actor who at times has like traded off performance roles with Anthony Hopkins. Like Hopkins will go to a movie, so Brian Cox will step in, and then Cox will finish his run, and Hopkins will come back, and they're nearly the same tier of actor. Now, whether you were feeling this Hannibal Lecter versus, what Hopkins eventually does with the character.
Every Hannibal Lecter I've ever seen is better than this one.
Well,
I've only seen 2 Hannibal Lecters.
For me,
but both of them were better than this.
I'm not even comparing it to Hopkins. I'm comparing it as a character that someone's playing. Now, Brian Cox doesn't have any frame of reference of how it should be played.
Mm-hmm.
It's a brand new character from a book, and that's it. That's his reference. Read the book. Is there any description in there about the way he speaks, how he looks, whatever? Other than that,
just his cell.
Just do your thing.
Just his cell.
Right.
Like in Red Dragon, and obviously this was the cell was set up before Red Dragon. The cell was set up in Silence, but the cell, you have, you walk down the hallway and you have this animal, that animal, this animal, and then Lecter.
Right.
And in Lecter's cell, he has what you would normally see in a jail cell: a toilet and a bed.
No, he didn't look like anything special.
And books.
Right.
And art. And, this is an extremely intelligent, cultured man that is in a cell.
Right.
What would,
how do you play that? I don't think they went into that.
And it's not Lecter's fault that he was in a white cell,
right,
wearing a white suit, and that's it.
But if you notice in this movie, they're not going for this grandiose, super cultured Frasier with a machete type guy. He's just a murderer. They don't even really talk about him being a cannibal, probably because they're stripping out the more extreme elements.
He didn't even play it like a doctor. For me, Brian Cox suffered from the same thing that Dennis Farina did. They didn't look at the character and say, okay, this man's very, like you said, extremely intelligent, cultured.
Yes.
And he uses this charm to also be a serial killer and has chewed people's face. Like, there's a lot there to play with. Don't play it like you're Joe Bob just got arrested for DUI. Like, he didn't play it any differently than anybody would play it, like you would see on the show Cops. Like, there was nothing special about his character development or his character study.
On purpose. That's what they meant to do.
Same thing with Farina. Farina should have said, okay, this guy, he's in this position. He's this and that. I'm going to drop the accent. I'm going to speak a little bit more with class, and I'm going to talk like I'm at a diner in Brooklyn.
People with accents can't have class?
Yeah, that seems kind of racist.
No, I'm not saying
you're not saying that.
No,
I know you're not saying that.
That city accent, like that New York. If you want to play a guy, you just got some class. You're not going to talk like this. You're going to act like maybe he went to Harvard. Maybe he had a little bit less street, a little bit more schooling.
Are you talking about the cop or are you talking about...
Talk about the character.
The thing that you guys are expressing, your concern with the way they present Lecter in this movie, your own bias from the later movies is informing your read of this character. Because what you're expecting...
I'm not talking about Lecter as a representation of a character. I'm just saying the actor did not do anything special to make him special.
But maybe he wasn't supposed to be special. That's the thing I'm trying to get across to you guys. This is a more grounded movie in an era of Freddy Krueger and Jason we're at 6 by now, so he's a zombie, right? The market for American movies with murderous people has gone a little bit off the deep end. And this is a movie that, very much like the Silence of the Lambs, is very Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is very much existing in the mid-'80s and going for a modern, stylistic, grounded approach to how they would treat a serial killer character. And so what you're getting in both Dollarhide and in Lecter is this super grounded, let's strip off all the kind of, some would say fancy, some would say ridiculous, eccentricities of these characters, and instead let's give them like as little cartoonish nature as possible, while building Will Graham as a very grounded, kind of introspective, not clairvoyant, just kind of emotionally damaged detective guy. So yeah,
See,
they're
that's
not
what
going to
makes it-
go with these big over the top gestures. I mean,
Nobody
Brian
wants
Cox
over the
can
top.
do closer, please,
Doesn't have to do that.
right?
Listen
But
what
that's
I'm
over the top.
I don't
Can
care.
we agree that that's a little over the top? Like it works because that movie works, and he's the
It's not over
scariest
the top.
monster at the.
It's not over the top because he establishes why he does that. So it becomes part of the character. What I'm saying
But
with
it's
this
theatrical.
is it's theatrical because Hannibal Lecter is theatrical.
The Hannibal Lecter that you expect is theatrical.
It's how he's written.
The
No, it's
Hannibal
how he's
Lecter
written.
in this movie is written to be non-theatrical.
How many plays have you been in?
I've been in like 3.
How many acting jobs have you ever done?
3 acting in school.
Okay, so when you see a writing on the page, it's written a certain way. And then you look at those words and you say, okay, these are the things I'm going to emphasize. These are the things I'm not. These are the things that are going to make my character stand out or whatever it is you're going to do. You're saying that the director and the creators of this movie said, we're going to not have a Jason, not have a Hannibal Lecter that's going to come in 10 years. We're just going to play him like he could bag groceries at ShopRite, and that's it.
I'm
and to
saying
me-
that they're going to play these guys close to the vest.
But that's
Keep
not how
them-
they're written.
Well, it's how
I'm
they're
saying they're written a certain way, and the actors aren't delivering the lines as they're written. There's nothing there. So,
they're just delivering
It
the lines.
really has nothing to do with being grand. He doesn't have to go, hello, Graham. He doesn't have to do stupid shit like that. But he has to actually act.
It's charming when Anthony Hopkins does it. I wouldn't call it stupid shit like
No,
that when he does it.
It's stupid shit if it's not done right, and it sticks out like a sore thumb.
Like, just think about it. Like, there was an exchange between Ed Norton and Anthony Hopkins about The File, right? When Anthony Hopkins played it, it's the same dialogue. It's the exact same dialogue, almost. When they're talking about the deal that they're about to make
Mhm.
with, oh yeah, I'll help you with the case, and Hopkins says, if I can keep the pictures, right?
Right.
And he says, he says no, right? It's almost the exact same thing here, but when Hopkins says it, that is, it's fucked up.
Yeah.
He wants to keep the pictures because he enjoys it,
Exactly.
right? And in here, it's like,
So a picture's a picture. Like, it's just like, okay,
like
you
what?
didn't...
What are you?
Yeah.
What are you like?
That's my issue. Like, you have the line.
And then he's like, no deal, and he's like ready to walk off, and like the whole walking away, and Lecter kind of saying, no, come back, like that whole deal that happens, dude. In this movie was just so like
It's
there's
monotone.
nothing.
It's bland.
There's nothing there,
And that's where I had issues, because that's one of the first scenes. Like, that discussion on the beach.
like Lecter's
where I
just
was like-
Lecter's just an animal.
But even
Like,
before they
ugh.
introduce him, like the dialogue between Graham and Crawford on the beach was
Mhm.
like boring. And then he talks to his wife, and she's fucking boring. And then he's like,
every character,
and then he's
boring.
like, oh, yeah, I'm going to see Lecter. Okay. Well, I only think that's awesome because I know who he is.
Yeah.
So they're not playing it, which he's right. They're playing it close to their vest. He's just going to see Lecter. But you already know through, I think it's mentioned, Crawford mentions that
Lecter tried to kill him.
Right. So you know there's history there. But when they see each other, you wouldn't even know it. Even though the words are there. The
Mhm.
words are there.
Mhm.
They're not playing it that way. So that's what I'm talking about. It's not... If I almost killed you and you caught me because I'm insane, I know you caught me because I'm insane. But I want you to say it. I'm going to make you say it, and I'm going to do it with my words. I'm going to manipulate you, which is what that character is written. Hannibal Lecter is a manipulator. It's written that way in the book, not in the script, not by the director. That character is written that way. So if you do your research, you know he's a master manipulator. He's already manipulated Graham and almost killed him. That has to come through.
He manipulated Graham for a long time.
So it's like, even if you're talking about coffee, do you want a cup of coffee? I'm going to get you a cup of coffee. You want a cup of coffee? If you say, you want a cup of coffee? Yeah, I'll take a cup of coffee. Do you want sugar in it? How many cubes? There's no history there.
Yeah.
But if you take those same lines and say, like you're talking about a file, when he says, do I get to keep the pictures? He doesn't have to say, I'd like to keep the pictures. He doesn't have to do the Lecter bullshit. He could just say straight up, do I get to keep the pictures? You're hearing that and you're going, ugh. Ugh.
Yeah.
As Dan always does. Ugh. Like, there's no ugh there. It's like, it looks like two mechanics talking about the car that they're going to
There's
fix.
100 ways that you can
Yes.
that you can deliver that. It's like, here, I have this file. And it's like, is it mine to keep? No, it's not. Then no.
Then I don't want it.
And it's like, all right, fine, just the pictures. You know? Like, that would have been a fine way to establish that I want to do some freaky, fucked up shit
Right.
with the pictures. I don't want to just do this to help you. I want to do it for me, and I get my jollies off of that.
Prime example, the end of that scene when he calls him insane. Then he gets up and leaves because he doesn't want to be analyzed. He doesn't want to be picked at.
Mm-hmm.
He's avoiding the comeback. He's like, I gave him a dig. You're insane. That's why you're in here and I'm not. He knows that Lecter's going to flip it on him and say, but you caught me because you're fucking insane too. Like,
Right.
That's what he knows is going to say. But it never gets to that. There's no...
No, he says as he's leaving, we're the same. And it's a
Right,
dramatic,
but
like,
there's-
out the door slam dynamic kind of thing.
But it's very, like you said, it's very close to the vest, very undertoned, not really... There's no gravitas behind some of these lines that, yes, are over the top in a Silence of the Lambs. But even when he's subtle in Silence of the Lambs, I don't want to compare the two. I don't want to compare Hopkins to Cox. I'm trying to take a single character that two actors interpreted. That's how I'm reading it. I'm not reading it as two actors. And
I think that you've both hung up on the fact that Michael Mann at this point is not focused on Oscar-worthy dialogue. It's just not a feature of this movie. Instead, what you have is a very matter-of-fact, almost conversational delivery between a lot of characters reading words on a page while the camera is painting pictures from every angle. And I don't know, you guys haven't mentioned the cinematography at all.
It's terrible.
It's
horrible.
Super stylized. Every
It's
picture.
terrible.
No,
there were seams in the shots that didn't need to be there. If you look,
Did they edit that on purpose, Dan?
that-
where it gets like jumpy at the end? and
Yeah, there's
stuff?
a couple of, and there's a really
Missing
interesting
frames.
one where he's sitting, and I think it's meant to like jar you a little bit. He's sitting there watching the video in the hotel room early on in the movie, and he's sitting still, and it jerks
jumps.
just a little, and I think it's supposed to just make you uneasy because you're like, oh, is something wrong with the did we?
No, I think the actor couldn't deliver a 30-second dialogue in one take.
No,
I think
it's intentional there because there's two or three. They're spread throughout the movie, and they're sparing. It's not a consistent thing.
It reminds
Okay,
me
so-
of a real change when you watch a film.
So the scene when there's a beautiful shot down a hallway of a white door, right? And the camera comes all the way up from the end of the hall all the way up to the white door. And then you get a little jump, and then the lock turns, and in walks Graham and what I think is a real estate agent. That was done purposely to make you uneasy?
That
Or
one
was
might
was that supposed to be a shot that was in the director's head, that this shot is going to be beautiful and wonderful and blah, 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 and was completely ruined by a stupid seam that they couldn't even fucking get right? Because I interpreted it as the latter.
Yeah, and I think it's because you came into this movie ready to hate it, and that's fine.
Nope.
I came into this movie.
Nope.
The two of us, wife and I, watched this movie, and we both thoroughly enjoyed it from the beginning to the end. So I mean, there is the ability out there for people to enjoy this movie.
It is terrible.
There are people that probably will enjoy this movie, but it's not me.
And that's okay.
Terrible.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Because somehow you both made it through the cell without wanting to kill yourself. So we obviously have different perspectives on what makes a watchable movie.
This is nowhere near as good as that movie.
Not even close. And
aesthetically,
and the cell,
visually,
the cell had its
acting,
issues. The cell had its issues.
It had its issues, but visually and
this
creatively, it was way more on point. This movie, just when I think of a movie that's dialogue heavy, I think of acting. Shame on me.
Yeah, shame on me too.
And if it's dialogue heavy, it's just like if you're watching a kung fu movie, you're going to be like, okay, I hope the fighting's good. Because you're not really going to care about the acting.
It's a kung fu movie, but like, I mean, the fighting is.
I'm pretty sure the last time we watched a martial arts heavy movie, it wasn't the fighting that you guys wanted to talk about.
No, the fighting sucked in that movie too. But
everything sucked in that movie.
That movie was bad. But it was. I enjoyed the creativity of the company that found the footage and what they did with it. But yeah, that movie was. It was no Enter the Dragon. Let's put it that way.
And I didn't watch the documentary, so that went over my head too.
I like them. I don't know. I think that it's going to be difficult to make this movie be the thing you want it to be. And I think that it's obvious that Silence of the Lambs escalates the character quite a bit and gets us.
You didn't take him out of it. I was already at this conclusion before they even went to see him.
Well, and that's the thing is this movie. I mean, in all, the Hannibal Lecter character in this movie is intentionally not as important as he is in Red Dragon. And I think that's one thing that kind of bugs me about Red Dragon is it just feels like we're affirming what we already knew from Silence instead of focusing on delivering the Will Graham story. Like it takes it out of Will and it puts it into
bad because they don't care about Lecter. Is that?
I think that what you're looking for between the characters is this grandiose, like, confrontation between the great Will Graham and the amazing Hannibal Lecter, and instead this show is trying to keep him to be an errand, and that's it.
No, and I agree that that's the whole purpose of this movie because Dollarhide is the main serial killer in this movie.
I mean, I hate to break it to you guys, but Hannibal Lecter is a cannibal whose name rhymes with the fact that he's a cannibal. Like, I really like where this character has gone up through. I like the first two books, and I like the movie Hannibal more than I like the book because the book is garbage. But, here's the thing. Like, if you are Michael Mann and you were trying to make this book in particular into a movie that people will take seriously in 1986, you have to downplay the fact that he's a guy named Hannibal who's also a cannibal. And if you notice the way that they describe his crimes, they make him sound violent and dangerous at the beginning. But then later on, they kind of downplay it in the script. Oh, he's cutting up college girls, right? Like suddenly his crimes are changed a little bit in how they present them to be more kind of 1980s slasher movie and less like eating lips off of people with beans and stuff. Like this movie is very intentionally trying to fit a cartoonish character into a mold that maybe it doesn't fit in. And it's okay if you think it's unsuccessful for that reason, because it is obviously not the direction they went with the franchise from here on out, right? Like they definitely learn from how this movie does and doesn't work with these characters. But I think George, I don't know that you've separated yourself enough from the movie Red Dragon, Silence of the Lambs, and the TV show Hannibal to be able to look and see like, this is an intentional move that it didn't work, but that doesn't mean it's not interesting and worthy of looking at.
But what doesn't make sense about that is the fact that they don't even mention he's a cannibal because they're trying to downplay it because his name rhymes with it and it's silly, which it is.
It's very silly.
But that has nothing to do with the issue with the character. The issue with the character is that he doesn't deliver the lines to where on a level that puts him where he's supposed to be. Yeah, he doesn't have to be the status that he's at in Silence of the Lambs, but he's still important enough for Graham to go to talk to him.
He's Graham's psychiatrist. Did that look like a psychiatrist to you at all?
No, there's no manipulation going on.
Do they
delivery.
it's a 2-hour movie. Do they at any point in the Manhunter script refer to him as Will Graham's actual practicing psychiatrist?
Yes. When he's talking to his son in the grocery store, he tells him the story of Lecter.
But see, it doesn't even matter because it's still in the source material. So the actor should know that.
Well, but here's the thing: your obsession with the source material doesn't. I mean, how many movies have you been in, Travis? If you go up to your director and say, "Well, hey, I was reading the novel, and this guy's a cannibal, and it rhymes with
fine.
Hannibal," and the director says, "Oh, we're not doing that because that's ridiculous, and we want this to be a Hollywood movie in 1986."
Fine, then it's not the actor's fault; it's the director's fault. It's still bad.
Yeah, and I'm not a huge
actor's
Michael
fault or
Mann
the
fan,
director's
as I
fault.
put out there, but I like the way that he shoots this movie, and it's.
It's like, I don't know whose fault it was, but this movie was not good.
But even if the director said, "Yeah, we're not playing up the cannibal thing," as an actor, I would say, "Are you playing up the psychology thing?" Because the way I'm playing it, I sound like a mechanic.
Well, okay, so we were talking about the Batman scene, right? And one of the reasons we talked about that they probably cut it from the movie was you'd spend the whole rest of the movie thinking, "Oh man, I got to know more about this Joker guy." If you had a Hannibal Lecter firing on all cylinders, less than a third of the way through the movie, you as an audience would look at that and go, "Man, this Red Dragon guy doesn't seem all that scary, but that guy in the jail cell is pretty scary. I sure would like to see more of him." And so it would take away from the Red Dragon guy, which
I don't think they were thinking that, but I hear what you're saying.
But I mean, I don't know that they would have seen the potential in the character at this point because he's a cannibal named Hannibal. But that's another thing that one of my concerns with the Red Dragon movie that we watched last week was this increased emphasis and spotlight for Hannibal takes away from not only the Red Dragon guy, but from Will. And I want it to be more of Will's story because the book is Will's story. The source material is Will's story.
You're probably going to edit this out, but I'm going to play it. First of all, music, terrible.
It's 1986, man. You can't take things out of the decade.
That's the same atrocious aftershave you wore in court 3 years ago.
Yeah, I keep getting it for Christmas.
Did you get my card?
I got it, thank you.
And how is Officer Stewart? The one who was first to see my basement.
Stuart's fine.
Emotional problems, I hear. Do you have any problems, Will?
No.
Oh my God. It's so painful.
See, and I think I like it. I like the way that he is keeping it arm's length Lecter. He's saying, "Lecter, I'm just going to shut you down. You're baiting me in, and I'm fine." You know?
Like,
it's not bombastic. I still like it better than Ed Norton's deliveries in Red Dragon. His very oddly casual, in the same scene, right? His discussion with Lecter, he's very, just like, "I don't know, I'm just hanging out." And it's like, what the that's not, that's... I feel like Graham's making a choice. You know, William Peterson's making a choice, and it may not be a choice you like, and it may be an amateur choice, but at least it's not like incongruent with the rest of the scene. It's just a choice that you don't like. And the camera angles are cool.
The camera angles are good, but it basically stands out because they're both making that choice.
I don't know. I feel like Hannibal's making bigger choices than you're giving him credit for. I actually found this version of Hannibal to be a little bit more threatening to me than the real Hannibal. Because the real Hannibal, the Hopkins Hannibal. Hopkins Hannibal, the thing about him is he's threatening in a way like, I'm worried if the lights went out, he would appear next to me in the train car, like is that Euro Trip? Like, that's the Anthony Hopkins. Like he's gonna show up next to me and he's gonna have a knife and fork and be ready to go when the lights come back on, and that's scary. But this Lecter, I feel like if I turn my back, he would take no hesitation to just gut me in a reach aroundy situation, right? Like it's a different kind of threatening. They're both threatening. I don't want to be alone with either of them. But I don't.
Know what I kept comparing it to, and I know what you're talking about, but to me the difference is, Falcone in Batman Begins. That scene when Bruce goes in with the gun and he confronts him, and he does, the people fear what they don't understand. That scene. Like, get out, like your parents, they begged. Like, I hear your mother begged. Like, just that
he poked
instigation.
Beg. He poked Beg.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's like, he was literally saying "fuck you," but he's saying "beg." Like, to me,
beg.
None of that happened in the scene, and it didn't have to be that direct.
When Lecter in this scene says, "Did you get my card?" Will says yes. They move on to the next thing.
Yeah, but you can't you're taking away from the delivery. We just heard it. He doesn't say, "Yes, I'm reading a cue card on Saturday Night Live," and
he said,
"I'm a guest."
In Red Dragon, it's, "Did you get my card?" And it's like, "Yes, thank you."
And that's just a different.
It was very nice of the FBI, blah blah blah, to deliver it to you. I would have sent it to your home address, but they won't give it to me.
Right.
Like, that is way more menacing, because like it's like, oh yeah, definitely don't give Lecter his home address. Right. Duh. But like, he's like, because if I had your home address, I would definitely get you killed.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I can have this complaint without Lecter
because that was what was being said in between the lines.
Right.
Exactly. In Red Dragon.
What am I saying and what am I really saying? To me, that's what Lecter's about, and it doesn't have to be grandioso. It's still the character.
There's a great, I want to compare this to one of my favorite movies. There's a scene in American Beauty. The scene where they're having dinner, the family dinner. You know the scene where he freaks out and he throws the plate against the wall?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a YouTube video of somebody was explaining good writing versus bad writing. Here's an example of how this could be written badly, and here is how they actually did it, and here's why it's amazing. I'll find that video so that you can watch it and maybe link it and share it. But that's what I think of when I think of scenes like the Lecter Will Graham scene in this movie, is the examples of bad writing from that video.
Yeah. I remember it's the same, again, it's spacey, but it's like...
And that scene is a very standoffish scene between Spacey and his wife and his kid. Like, everyone is short in that scene, and it works because of the way it's written. It's written well. And this just...
If the script says silence, and during the silence you are fucking riveted, then the actor is doing their job.
Yeah.
Because all it says is silence. What is that actor doing? Like, you saw Glengarry Glen Ross, right?
Mm-hmm.
The scene where Spacey's like, "Go to lunch. Go to lunch." He's just telling me, "Go to lunch." That's all. That's the line.
Mm-hmm.
But he says it like 9 or 10 different ways to Jack Lemmon. And you feel horrible for Jack Lemmon because you know what "go to lunch" really means.
Mm-hmm.
The line is saying one thing, but the actor and the behavior of everybody in that scene is saying another. Just like Alec Baldwin, he's like, what is it?
Second
Ed Harris says?
Second prize is a set of steak knives.
He says,
means you're a loser.
"Fuck you, that's my name." Like that, yeah. To me, it's like those kind of lines. It's like when written and then delivered, that's to me saying so much more. He's like, yeah, like you said, first prize is a Cadillac, second prize is a set of steak knives.
That means if you're second, you're a loser.
You're a loser. But that's the line, and you can deliver it any way you want. So, to me, if the character's written correctly, and obviously Lecter is written correctly because it's in a book, and it's pretty layered, even though it is only like one scene. In the Red Dragon, it's more because he's popular, so they made more scenes for him. But that jail scene is still written that way, and there should be some tension. And I didn't feel any of that.
See, and I feel the tension listening to that clip on YouTube and thinking about how unwilling to engage the Graham character is. I mean, he's being like unnaturally short with his responses in a it's an intentional delivery.
Then why is he there?
Because he needs
said
to
he
get
was
the
going
scent.
there to.
Yes.
He needs to get his scent back. He needs to
But
jazz himself
who's
back
putting him
up.
to scent if he's avoiding everything?
Yes.
That was my issue with it. Like,
yes.
he's going there to
he
be
can't
He
be
didn't
the
even
short
put his
guy.
nose in the thing, so I don't know how he got the scent.
exactly.
Jeez
Like
Louise.
to me, you're going there to get back in the zone, right?
Okay,
That's
so
what that was what
besides
he
the
said.
fact that you hate the dialogue in that scene, we need to talk about other aspects of the scene. First of all, did you notice the over-the-shoulder one-shots from Silence of the Lambs are present in Manhunter?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's amazing because we give so much credit to Jonathan Demme when really, when he's making Silence of the Lambs, he's taking the already established formula and using it again. That's
He used
interesting.
Barney's in this movie.
Barney's in this movie very briefly. I love, guys, I know you didn't like whatever. Michael Mann is not my favorite director, and most of his newer movies I just do not love. But his camera work in this movie, his intentional security camera height, swinging camera shots in the jail cell, did you catch those?
Mhm.
Like, that's stylish as heck, and I really liked it, and I was happy to see it.
See, I think you enjoyed it because it had that I don't want to say it has the aspects of a giallo, but it has those artsy, European kind of things in this movie.
Every shot, every still shot in this film was intentional. And a lot of the the color choices and stuff, which don't really fly in today's world, they've been replaced by blues and oranges in a lot of the action movies. It's like a monochrome blue with a hint of a sunrise, and then like all that stuff he's putting so much effort into that. It might make the dialogue more of an afterthought than you guys prefer, given what you've seen from the great Brett Ratner. But I mean,
I'm not a big fan of Red Dragon either.
These are informed, intentional. I mean, some of these shots are paintings, still life some really inspired stuff here.
Okay, whatever.
Really good stuff.
My eyes are in the back of my head, bro.
Now,
I don't.
You're the student, so I don't know, man. Like maybe just like listen and think about it for a day or two.
Okay, Travis's eyes are in the back of his
No,
head too.
I'm sitting there thinking maybe I should go back and watch it on mute and see how beautiful it is because
Yeah.
I was so not feeling it because
Yeah, if you check out because of the dialogue delivery in the first scene, you may not catch
no,
the
first
fact
I'm
that
talking about the
there's-
first hour, not the first scene. The first scene is what established it for me before Lecter, and then once the Lecter scene happened, I was like, wait, what's going on here? Why am I watching a high school play? And then the music and the choices of it just to me it was not, maybe it was supposed to be unsettling, but it wasn't unsettling scary or creepy. It was just, it made me not want to watch. So I don't know visually, like I know Halloween, every shot is beautiful. They're all lobby cards, every shot in that movie, but I didn't see hardly any of those in this movie per se. Some of the shots were nice, like some of the wide angle shots on the beach and stuff. They were nice,
man.
but
And like the sunrise coming through the windows at the very end.
but none of that matters if the dialogue is terrible.
But see, that's where we disagree. And I think that's probably our fundamental disagreement on the show is so much of what you look for is this one thing. And you sometimes you just have to let these movies be what they are, right? Like
so you have to compromise good acting to go on a journey of beautiful pictures. Like,
some of
to
these
me,
movies are
it's a
punk rock,
movie.
man. You're gonna have to give up your complex fifths and harmonies, and you're not gonna see as many jazz chords. Sometimes these are just punk rock, and
But I
you're
don't
gonna
wanna
hear a
the
guy
clarinet
scream.
squeaking every 5 seconds either. Like the difference between going to a jazz club in Nashville and
There's a difference
or
between good.
Louisiana, going to a Louisiana jazz club, or going to a local high school play and listening to Music Man and the clarinet's going.
Well,
every
and
3
see,
seconds.
it's funny you bring that up because the Hannibal Lecter of this movie would be too busy stalking, the students of that high school, picking them off one by one in horrible
Because they're
grotesque
terrible.
way. But he
Right.
in Red Dragon, he would be the anti-hero, picking the worst flautist in the group and cooking him for all the good musicians.
Hmm.
Like that's pretty stupid. Can we acknowledge that that's stupid? I don't think I hammered it hard enough last time.
It's not.
It's stupid to make him
not
a
stupid
hero.
at all.
He's a cannibal whose name is Hannibal.
It's not stupid.
It's too much flourish,
I agree
man.
he should not be a hero, but to me, that
I think
I'm on board if the acting's good.
I think he should be a hero.
I think it's a mistake at the end of Silence of the Lambs for him to want to go after Chilton like that. Because I think you've switched him to anti-hero. And if you look at what they do in the Hannibal, and if you look at what they do in Red Dragon, because the thing about Red Dragon is it's a sequel prequel. So they're taking some of the things they've changed in the movies and making it consistent with the universe. And I think that's a mistake. I think I like my Hannibal more threatening. I like the first half of the movie Hannibal from Silence of the Lambs, and I like the Manhunter Hannibal. I think I want him.
So you don't want him to give Clarice a pass?
I don't think I do.
Because that's basically what it is. Because he does kill three cops by ripping their skin off.
Yeah, he goes after people that he finds unpleasant.
See, and I don't like that.
You know?
I don't think I like that. I don't think that's. I don't know. It's the difference between a dangerous raving lunatic and a sociopath, psychopath with like a code. I don't know
But
if
is
I
that
want
something
a code.
that was ever established? Does he? Because as far as I know, he's indiscriminatory when he kills somebody, right?
And I think as it goes, it becomes.
No, in silence.
In
Like,
silence.
Is it established?
Who does he kill in? Yeah, no.
Well, you're the one who read the books. What did
Well, I
they
haven't read
ever
the books in
establish?
20 years.
Okay,
so
but I'm trying to see how they really establish who he was and why he did what he did. Is it random? Is it like a strange version of vigilantism that George
I
is
think
talking about?
as it gets to Silence of the Lambs, if I remember right, the movie starts to establish it more as, kind of a mixed up like moral codeless vigilantism. And by Hannibal, it's worse. And by
Hannibal's a
Red
terrible
Dragon,
movie.
I don't know. Hannibal's an okay movie. It's better than I remembered the last time I watched it, but it's still not great. But then
I mean,
Red
Gary
Dragon,
Oldman's
by the
pretty
time you
good
get to
in it,
Red
but-
Dragon, he's killing the flautist because he's a bad flautist, and he's feeding him to the good musicians. And that's like,
But is he killing him because he's a bad flautist, or is he killing him because he ruined his experience at the orchestra?
Because he's a bad flautist.
See, I took it as more. It was like his punishment for ruining Lecter's enjoyment
Well,
of that
yes,
music.
it was this.
How dare you?
This would be more beautiful if you
weren't
were
in
food.
it.
Is what it was.
That's how I took it.
That's how I took it.
Yeah, I didn't
This
and I
whole
hate that. I
experience-
don't like that. That's not what I want. I don't
Oh,
want him to have
God.
that
But
much
that
control.
makes him malicious. That doesn't make him a
So
hero.
good.
That
I
makes
don't
him a
know.
douche.
I didn't
Like
like it.
he just killed this guy
It's
because
a
he
little too-
ruined the song.
He's
He
too much
doesn't
Frasier
deserve
with
to.
he's Frasier with a butcher knife at that point. I don't want
Yes.
Frasier to be my
Love
guy.
it.
So
No, it's not a butcher knife. It's all kinds of beautiful
Mm.
knives, and he's filleting things perfectly.
He's Bobby Flay.
He's doing
Eat
like
Bobby Flay.
not only is he a world class psychiatrist and let's say orchestra critic, he's
Yes.
also a world class chef.
Right.
He can make anything taste good, as we know.
Including Ray Liotta's brain.
Yeah.
So Manhunter comes out in 86. We've never seen Hannibal the Cannibal in film to this point. The description of him in the books, and I have to preface this because I found it online. And I can't tell you which book it's pulling from, but it basically describes Dracula, right? Yeah, I don't even want to read it because it's so lame. Lecter's eyes were a shade of maroon and reflected the lights in pinpoints of red. He had small white teeth and dark, slicked back hair with a widow's peak. Because widow's peaks are more menacing, or because they look like 1930s Dracula? I don't know.
Dracula, yeah.
But here's the thing. They didn't give him a widow's peak, thank God. I'm going to send you a couple of pictures from a movie that came out probably 3 years before they made this movie. And what I would argue is probably a visual reference for the Hannibal of this movie. So I sent that to our little chat.
Mm-hmm. Who's that?
That is
familiar.
that is Bob Geldof in the movie The Wall, Pink Floyd's The Wall from 1982. If he still had his eyebrows in the first shot, that's pretty much Lecter's cell even. And the hair and the attitude, right? Like when Lecter pops up and kind of lurches toward the camera the first time, all I could see was Bob Geldof's Pink, which is the character from the movie. So I pause the movie and I say to my wife, I say, you remember the wall? They might be referencing that look. And so I pull up the picture and she's like, well, yeah, I mean, it does kind of look like him.
But see, the acting in this photo is better than the acting in the movie.
Well,
Like, I'm looking at his expression, and that expression is telling me way more than Brian Cox told me the entire 4 minutes.
But we know Brian Cox is a great actor, and so you have to wonder, like, is that a Michael Mann? Like, he's too worried about the angle of the camera and he needs to, like, talk to the actors a little bit? Maybe it is. I don't know.
It's the Lucas theory. It's the George Lucas theory. The guy directed certain movies really well, but was not a good director of actors. So you get really bad performances that probably could have been good. Sometimes you get Oscar award-winning actresses and or actors in a Lucas film, and all of a sudden it's like a Schumacher film, because it's like, how does somebody who has like 2 Oscar nominations deliver such a terrible performance?
But
Because,
a couple of years later, he does
about
Heat.
the angles.
And I'm not a huge Heat fan, but I like it plenty. Would you argue that the acting in Heat is, like, not informed by the director? I mean, I know there's that part with or whatever from Pacino, but, like, most of the acting in Heat is pretty good, right? Character development's good. Like,
I mean,
does Michael Mann in 10 years go from totally incapable of directing his actors to totally good at directing his actors? Or are they doing exactly what he asks them to do, and they're doing what he wants them to do, and he wants them to do this, and this just isn't what you wanted?
Or the budget and the casting director went after A-list actors. Like, if you can afford Tom Sizemore from the Heat era and put him in Manhunter as Will Graham, I'm on board.
And I like
Will
Will
Harvey
Graham. I thought he was
Keitel.
fine, but maybe I'm
You
just...
get a Harvey Keitel to play.
You know, Dan, I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'm gonna say, maybe you're right and Travis is wrong, and the reason why the movie sucked is the director. And as long as we agree that for whatever reason that the movie sucked, then we can be friends.
I think it is. I think this movie is a curiosity. I wouldn't say it sucks. I would say it's probably not successful in all of its endeavors, right? Like, there's some real shortcomings in this movie. The pacing from them meeting Dollar Hyde and Reba to her petting that large cat, there's very little explanation. They do a much better job in Red Dragon with that particular part.
Yes.
But when you have 20 years of notes on a movie, I mean, that's the...
I think Jonathan Demme did it way better.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, so did the Oscar Academy, but you don't... I don't know that you get Silence of the Lambs without this movie.
Dan, maybe the actors, and Travis, maybe the actors had disadvantages.
Hey, so it's pretty wild that, like, there's a potential that Pink Floyd might have somehow influenced the look of Hannibal Lecter in this
Lecter
movie.
Cell?
And
Lecter and Lecter Cell.
And Lecter in Silence of the Lambs, remember, he has that same slicked back hair and the same outfit. So that's kind of fun to think that maybe Pink Floyd somehow influenced how the movie that won an Oscar made their Hannibal Lecter. But you can say, Dan, that's kind of a stretch. I mean, yeah, it's the same era, you know, but there's a lot of people with slicked back hair. You've already mentioned Dracula, right? There is a point in this movie, guys, where euphoric, generic 80s music kicks on. And let me see, I put a note on here so that I would remind you when it was. Maybe I put a note on here, maybe I didn't. Wouldn't that be funny if I forgot to mark what scene it was? Oh, there it is. Okay, so it's when he's about to have his big revelation. Oh, guys, the padlock scene, which, by the way, they didn't let me play along. That's a mark against this movie. I liked it better in the Ratner movie. But the music, do you remember the music from that scene? There's no way I'm going to be able to access it in the next 5 minutes so that you can hear it. But
we had it up. You want?
Yeah, skip to that scene real quick. I want you to hear that music because I'm going to put it into context that's going to blow your mind. Or you're not going to give a fuck. One or the other.
Well, 80s music in general is...
What scene were you talking about?
So it's when he's
The
watching the
padlock scene.
video and he realizes he's seen these particular videos. So it's before they pull his driver's license picture, because that was my next note. And you'll know it. I mean, they don't play it subtle with the music in this scene.
Oh, no, I remember it kicking right in.
I think it's when he says, pull the label off, something like that.
See, in this entire time in Red Dragon, you had Hopkins saying, "You looked, but you didn't see."
Yeah, but that presupposes that Lecter like knew. I don't know. I don't like that. I don't know. There is music at some point.
There's music playing right now.
Oh, I can't hear it through the thing. So,
It's synthy.
dude, you know what it sounds like?
What?
It sounds like the chorus to Comfortably
Horses. Huh. Sounds like a song from
Think
Silence of
about
the Lambs that he's
that-
dancing to.
Numb. Well, yeah, and maybe,
Yeah, it sounds like
horses.
it sounds like Goodbye Horses. Yeah.
but listen to the chord structure. It's a bunch of major chords. It is euphoric. It is the chorus to
No,
Comfortably
I hear
Numb,
it
but
now.
generic. Isn't that funny?
I hear it now. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's the
sounds
same
like the music-
arpeggio as Comfortably Numb.
Yeah.
Guys,
It sounds like the music that's usually played in an 80s, like, what do you call it, John Hughes movie when they're come to their conclusion.
well,
That's
it's the
very
thing.
comfortably numb, though.
That's the thing is it's resolution, right? The minor scale verses juxtaposed against these major scales, euphoric, drug-like arpeggio, overdone, too much synth. I mean, that's Comfortably Numb. And this is Comfortably Numb. And so when I heard that, I was like, guys, I think that might have been an intentional Pink reference with the design of Hannibal Lecter, which carries on through the next movies. Guys, Pink Floyd in this movie.
Let's, did you notice, I don't know if I was going insane, was Chris Elliott in this movie?
Chris Elliott's in this movie for no reason. On one
I
scene.
saw him sitting at the table. I'm like, is that Chris Elliott?
He
Is that
doesn't even
Woogie?
do anything. He's not
I
funny.
saw
He
him.
says like one line. And again, Chris Elliott, why
Yeah.
are you here?
I'm like, it's Woogie.
Ooh, how about the
And-
creepy the creepy total eclipse of the heart moment where you see the dreams with the no eyes and the glowing?
Yeah.
That's very total eclipse.
Oh,
of
is
the
that when he
heart.
wakes up on the airplane? And the little girl's like, no, that's when.
No,
he
that's
falls
an
asleep
awesome
with all the
scene
crime
though.
pictures out.
Because he's having like a nice dream, just like an escape dream.
Of his wife, I think.
And he's
or something.
drugged back to reality by a screaming child who just saw the naked lady get murdered and glass shoved in her eyes.
Yeah.
I tried
That's
to
a
look
good
it up,
scene.
but I couldn't figure it out. I thought one of the people in this movie, he might be a cop in this movie, sounded and looked exactly like the guy from Silence of the Lambs that was like, that's Jim Pember, now talk to him. You know, the guy with the mustache, the cheap Sam Elliott. I'm like looking at him, I'm like, did they go and they just basically recasted this movie when they made Silence? Because Barney's in there.
Well, Barney, I think, is a
And-
character in the book, so it would make sense. But yeah, the Sam Elliott guy, the only cop I remember with the mustache in this movie is the really bad actor who comes to the house to check on Will's family.
Best if you come with me.
He
Yeah,
was
just
not
go-
a good
yeah.
actor. He
Or no,
struck
just
me
go
as
back
like
inside. Just go inside.
maybe the police technical advisor got a favor and got to be the policeman because they figured you're a policeman, you do this all the time, you'll be a great actor as a policeman. And instead he was just like, ma'am, you gotta ma'am, would you get back inside, please? I was
It's
like,
the
"Oh."
opposite of was it Early?
Yeah.
Ermy. It's like let's have him play the drill sergeant, train our drill sergeant, and then as he's helping out, they're like, you know what? Do you want the part?
Yeah, you're
'Cause
more
really
fun than
good
the
at
other
it.
guy. So
Yeah,
yeah.
The guy you're training isn't getting it, and you're really good at it. So do you want to play the drill sergeant? Hell yeah! Hell yeah!
So Pink Floyd
It's
is
not
in
even
this
my
movie.
desk.
Michael Myers is in this movie. I love this movie. It's great. One thing that really puzzles
This isn't
me,
even my
guys.
desk.
This isn't even my desk.
Such a good line.
All right, go ahead then.
Did you guys notice that we never see the tattoo? They've
No.
excised
Too-
the tattoo from this movie.
Yeah.
Now, the
Why-
reason
why
I
is
bring that
probably
up,
cost wise.
No, here's the funny thing. Well, there's a bunch of funny things about the tattoo in this movie, but one, did you notice when he gets shot at the end, he gets dragon wings? When he lands on the ground, the puddle of blood becomes 2 dragon wings. That's pretty cool.
And we noticed it was not 3M blood because it was really, really dark and
Well, Travis
Travis
liked the blood, and I thought it could have been darker, but he made a good point. It was against like white linoleum
floor,
and very well lit. So
well, and he never went out in the moonlight to experience it on his nude body or whatever. Then it would have looked really black, according to Hannibal in both movies. Here's the thing.
So hard.
The cover of my movie, I've got this is the English release because the American release of this right now is like $100 on Blu-ray.
Really?
Because it's out of print. So $15 on Amazon. I got a British one. It's a picture of him with the half pantyhose on his head and the fucking tattoo. And so when I finished the movie last night, I was like, hey, did we ever see? I don't think there wasn't a. Turns out they shot scenes with the tattoo and with the shirt on, and intentionally just went with the shirt because it was more grounded. So that's interesting. I didn't know that until today when I was like, he's on the cover of my movie with the tattoo, and I don't remember it in the movie. But yeah, there's still shots. There's like promotional images of him with the tattoo in some of the scenes that we saw him in without the tattoo. It's very weird and interesting, but I think it just goes back to we're trying to keep this grounded in a world of Michael Myers coming back after so many years, and with Jason's a zombie and Freddy's a nightmare guy, and we're trying to do like a grounded version of this.
They're trying to do a giallo serial killer that can die wearing a motorcycle helmet.
Yeah, we needed a motorcycle helmet. That would have made this movie better.
So Dan, I think I know what your opinion's going to be, but I'll ask you anyway. When Dollarhide gets shot 6 times, he shot him 6 times. Actually, I didn't count, but there's multiple times in that scene when you can tell that it's chopped.
Yeah, it's super jumpy.
There's seams. Right. Okay. So was that done on purpose, or was that done because they were just using the best blood splatter parts and trying to splice it together as best they could?
Yes.
Okay.
On all
I mean,
counts,
that's the thing, right? Like the weird jump when he's sitting by himself in the hotel room and he's talking to himself, and it does a little blip, and it feels like the Ring video a little bit, just blip.
Yeah.
I think there's a good chance that there was more dialogue there, more monologue there, and they decided, we're going to trim the fat, we're going to get rid of some of this. And then when they did it and they looked at it, they went, oh, that's cool. We're just going to leave it like that. Same thing at the end. I have a feeling they probably did intentionally trim it for pacing, right? But there's other ways you can get pacing. If you guys, I don't know if we talked about it, but Jason Goes to Hell is framed at like 23 frames per second or 22 frames per second.
It should be 0 frames per second.
So it speeds up a little bit because Sean Cunningham supposedly felt like producing that movie that the actors were moving too slow and just too deliberately. So if you speed it up a little bit, it looks more natural. So what I'm saying is they could have sped it up. They could have done other tricks. They could have reshot it. And instead, when they get to that point...
I brought it up.
Yeah,
Chainsaw removed like 2 or 3 frames before every kill to make the kill more of all of a sudden.
Yeah. So I think there's an intentional, whether that was their ideal, whether they set out at the beginning to be like, yeah, we're going to chop it up. It's going to look weird. I think when they got to the point that they were fiddling around with that scene, they came to that conclusion that, yeah, this is off-putting and weird, and we're going to leave it.
So how many frames per second was this one?
This would have been 24. I mean, this is like your standard 24p movie.
Okay, so if you take 24 times 60 times 122, which is the runtime in seconds, that means that this was 175,680 frames. I think, if I did the math correctly.
Movie math with George.
Too many.
What is this?
It's 175,000 frames too many. Oh, God.
But they made comfortably numb when he found the video.
That's why I left the 675 frames in at the end.
Nice. And the driver's license picture looks like Michael Myers. Good job, my wife. She pointed that out, and she was right. I don't know. We have a fondness for this movie because she's from St. Louis, and I used to live outside of St. Louis. So when they start showing like the local cops and stuff, I'm just like, yeah, man. I remember that I remember that exit. I-70. Woo!
It's like our affiliation with Rocky.
Exactly. It's just
Yeah.
had to get the news chopper out and talk about I-70 on the way to Kansas City. It's got a lot of traffic this time of night.
What was that other movie that was in Philly that Dan didn't like because it was a
12
comedy?
Monkeys.
Because it was funny. No.
Oh.
The comedy that was funny.
Trading Places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
We
felt
don't
that way,
discuss
too.
the fact that he didn't like Trading Places.
Trading Places was fine.
Yeah.
No, it was our.
But that's how I felt. I was like, oh, this
was
is
our special guest that didn't like it. Of that episode.
We had
Blake.
a special guest for that episode.
Blake. Balake.
Oh, that was the Blake episode.
That was the Blake episode.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
We got to get him back
Yeah, I
on with the
remember now.
movie he likes. That would be good.
Yeah. And Richard again.
I promise not to be so
Belligerent.
yeah as this. Unless the movie's this bad, then no promises.
Go back and
Wow.
watch some of the scenes on mute, Travis. Just even watch them on like two or three 2x. Just the beach scene, any of the scenes in the beach house where it's him and his wife. It's right at the beginning, and everything is just this weird lush 80s blue. These are beautiful shots. These are designed
That doesn't do
shots.
anything for me. I don't watch movies to be like, ooh. I watch movies to be intrigued and entertained by, and look at technique and yeah, visually techniques from the filmmaker, cinematographer is pretty cool. Texas Chainsaw, even the remake had some really cool like wide shots that were beautiful.
The Shining.
The Shining. That's what I was gonna say. Stanley Kubrick. You know.
No seams in that movie.
That's why he purposely had things removed and the drywall patched and painted
Mm-hmm.
for no reason. Just let's move that entire thing.
Yeah, that was not done on
Patch it,
purpose. Not at all.
Paint it,
No.
and then let's relight the scene. Right. No reason.
No, well, I'm thinking of the cameras, like the scene when Jack is kind of like stalking Wendy across the room and up the stairs. It's like all one take. It's fucking so good.
Wendy, darling, light of my life.
Even the still shot at the beginning of Halloween.
That's
Or
a
not
Dean
still shot,
Cundy.
the steady camera.
The thing about that, and I don't know if
But-
we talked about it at the time because I hadn't seen this movie yet. Everybody gives John Carpenter a lot of credit for that opening shot in Halloween, and it's great. Great job, John, for directing that movie. But last year during the summer, I was watching a movie called The Witch Who Came from the Sea or something like that. You guys would not enjoy this movie.
No, definitely
Sounds
not.
awesome. How's he acting in that?
It's really interesting. The Witch Who Came from the Sea from
They're very
1976.
grounded. It's a very grounded movie.
One of the reasons I watched it was because it was shot by Dean Cundy, and it has a lot of those really interesting long Steadicam shots that look like the Halloween opening. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. So it was a collaboration.
I think
and he doesn't get any credit for that.
It was established in most of the documentaries and or interviews that I've watched where I think they did say it was a collaboration even back then to do that opening shot.
Good. Dean Cundy deserves some credit. I mean, now he's obviously shooting Disney TV shows, so he's doing fine.
So he's made it.
He's
in
doing
other
the
words.
thing. Right.
His parents are proud. His parents are proud.
Yeah, because didn't he shoot some of the Boba Fett show? Like the first or second episode was him.
I think so. Yeah.
So, it's pretty good.
Or The Mandalorian. It might have been
when
the
you
Boba
said
Fett.
Disney shows, I thought you meant like Hannah Montana.
Oh, no. I mean like top
no.
tier
The real
Disney
shows.
Plus
It's
Star
the
Wars.
real
ones that are-
shows.
the ones
good
that are
ones.
mini movies.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
long movies.
Never mind. I was totally sarcastic about that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, great.
They're about to release the Obi-Wan show, which is supposed to be really good.
Now, before we wrap up here and tell George what he's watching next week, I do have one correction, and one apology to Brett Ratner.
Oh.
Last week.
Who's Brett Ratner?
The director of Red Dragon.
Okay.
Oh my God. Oh, jeez. So last week I complained about how
He was Mark Antony.
the dialogue in Red Dragon was too much of a rehash, a retread of what worked in Silence of the Lambs. And one of the things I pointed to, besides the one-shot camera angles, which it turns out weren't from Silence of the Lambs, they were actually from Manhunter. The other thing I pointed out was the use of the bottle with a ship on it line.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh my God, like it worked fine in Silence of the Lambs. We don't need to do that again. We don't need to bring that back for Red Dragon.
It's in this?
It's in this. Guys, it's a retread in Silence of the Lambs.
Yes.
What?
But it works in Silence
That's
of the
so
Lambs.
meta.
It works better in Silence of the Lambs than it does here.
Yeah.
But it doesn't hurt here. Right? It's fine. It's better. It's a better insight in Silence of the Lambs than it is here. Here it's just
'Cause
whatever.
It's better delivered. The line is better delivered.
Well, sure, the line's
I was
better.
gonna say it's fine in Silence of the Lambs because nobody watched this movie.
Well, and not a lot
So
of
they
people
never-
did watch this movie at the time, and it didn't make the big splash that
like
obviously
I
Silence
feel like
did.
Brian Cox would be like, you wear Avion skin cream, but not today.
No, his deliveries are better than that, because we just listened to him. His deliveries are a little bigger than that. What would happen, though, is Will Graham would be like, yes. But, again, that's an intentional choice that you guys just don't like, and that's fine. They're not incompetent actors in this movie. They're just doing a thing that they're not doing it how you would have done it. They're
Right.
talking to each other like they're on a bus and they don't like each other versus
do?
being,
We covet. What do we covet? We cover what we see every day.
We cover what we see every day, dude.
And it doesn't make sense that Hannibal would know that Will had seen but not seen yet, or you've looked but not seen in Red Dragon, because what that would assume is that Hannibal Lecter deduced that Dollarhide was picking his victims from his job at a video processing store, and the FBI has those videos, and the FBI has the boxes to those videos to be able to connect them to the processing plant. And that is a whole lot of toilet paper.
That is a lot of toilet paper.
Do you know what line just popped in my head that reminds me of our discussion?
What?
Again, that back and forth between Batman and Joker. When he says, you have pictures,
Mm-hmm.
and he says, you think I get off on this? Right? Is that what he says? You think I get off on
Right.
this?
Yep.
I don't remember, but I
And
trust you.
then Batman just says, don't you? But he says, like, basically saying, well, don't you? In that attitude, but he doesn't, because he can't do that because he's fucking Batman.
Right.
He's not sarcastic, but he says, don't you? But you hear that in his very bland, monotone delivery.
Yeah.
Completely, I feel all the levels of what he's saying to him.
Yeah.
You're a fucking nut, and you do, so shut your mouth.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah, but I mean,
That's
he
all I
could do
want.
it bigger, you know?
He doesn't
but he's
have to. He
choosing
didn't
not
have
to
to.
do it bigger. I don't know.
Right.
The thing for me in that scene, the Batman cutscene, I think the Joker's putting a little too much on it. Just a little too much. And so
Yeah, I think, again, that's the director saying, take what worked, but, make it creepier.
when we see him in
It's
the
all
next
good.
movie, he won't be so exactly like
No.
this.
No, he won't.
It was too much. It was just too much. Like I'm glad they cut it because it didn't distract us, but I'm also kind of glad they cut it because it was a little too much for
I
this
loved it.
movie. Unlike the Riddler, who's just like, "Hey guys, thanks for the subscriptions. It really means a lot when you hit me up on that Cash App." Like, so good, and it's not going to age well.
But see, you loved Paul Dano, and there's nothing more Nicolas Cage, Anthony Hopkins than going, Bruce Wayne.
I don't
You
know. That
like
part's
that.
wild.
True.
I don't know if I like.
It was
that part.
wild.
It's good because it manipulated me, but I don't know if in
Right.
a couple of years I'm gonna like that reading at all. I'm gonna be, oh my god, why is he saying it like that? Like when I can't distance myself from the experience anymore, and I'm just like, well, I know
Right.
he's not talking about Batman being Bruce Wayne. Why is he saying it like that? He should be saying
I've
it
seen
differently.
it 3 times. It still works.
He should be saying it like Bruce Wayne, you know, like frustrated, like, he got away. We'll get him, but he got away. And instead, he's just saying it weird to be weird. I don't know. We'll see how that lasts for me. But hey, what are we watching next week?
You tend to
man?
like things, then hate it, and then like it, and like I'll try it again in 2 years, see if I like it.
Yeah, you know, because I think I acknowledge that our own biases when we go in and watch these movies, our own bias at that moment really is a lens through which we view these films. So when
Unless it's
I'm
My Cousin Vinny, then it's always good.
When I'm 13 and I watch Manhunter for the first time, I'm disappointed that there's no boobs in it. And it's fine, but it's like 80s is all get out. But then as I get older and I look at Red Dragon, I think, oh man, this movie could have been good, but there's certain things I don't like. And then I go back and look at this and I go, man,
And there's no boobs in it.
we had most of what I wanted from Red Dragon and Manhunter already, and the stuff they added, I don't think that's the stuff I wanted. So they're both equidistant from the movie I really want, which is the Red Dragon book as a movie.
Word.
Yeah. So what are we watching next week?
Well, I think we're going to keep the theme of music and footlongs. No. We're going to watch a movie. I'm not sure if George knows what it is, but he probably will. We're going to watch Boogie Nights.
Boogie Nights.
Have you ever heard of
Never
Boogie
seen it.
Nights, George?
Boogie Nights.
I have heard of Boogie Nights.
What have you heard?
That it's a movie. Just now?
Insightful.
No, Boogie Nights. It's a movie. It's a classic.
It's a classic. It is definitely a classic.
Yeah, definitely a movie that I should have seen.
Yes. and
Probably.
It's definitely a movie that is better than this. And it's not in this.
Arguably so.
Yeah. But is it in this genre? I don't know. We'll have to say.
What do you think Boogie Nights is, George?
Dude, I couldn't tell you, bro.
It's about picking noses.
Oh, I was thinking about
Hey-o.
like dancing, like like boogie woogie. I don't know.
Lots of bugle boys in this company.
And picking noses too.
Interesting.
Okay. Well, I look forward to hearing what you think. I like that you've given up on conjecture after the Hellraiser incident of 2020.
Conjecture. Oh, yeah, true.
Thank you for joining us on the Remedial Film Class podcast. As always, you can find us at facebook.com/remedialfilmpod. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at remedialfilmpod. And hey, if you're feeling old school, like it's the 70s or something, you can email us remedialfilmpod@gmail.com. We'll be back next week with the movie Boogie Nights.